Hi, everyone. Welcome to ANN In Depth. Today, I was so lucky because I got to talk to Dr. Landless, who is the Health Ministries Director for the Seventh-day Adventist World Church, and Torben Bergland, who is the Associate Director of Health Ministries for the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And we were talking about COVID and what COVID is going to be like when we're all back to normal. How are we supposed to act if the world is opening up now? And what implications does that have to our physical and mental health? And so I was so grateful to be able to talk to them. And I think you're really going to have a lot of interest in this conversation because we're going to talk about how this impacts kids. Kids can't be vaccinated, but there's a lot of information that says that COVID can't impact them, but we are seeing more and more that it does. And so we talk a lot about how COVID has impacted our children, both mentally and physically. So you're really going to want to stick around and watch. As you can see, I'm by myself. Sam is not here. And that is because Sam is on vacation and he will be for the next few weeks, but that's okay because you know what? We have some great co-hosts lined up and you'll be excited to see them as well. So we hope you enjoy this conversation. If you have questions, as always, make sure that you comment below, subscribe to our channel. And also don't forget, you can go on Spotify and you can look for ANN In Depth and you can subscribe just to the audio podcast. So you can just watch this or listen to this through our audio podcast on Spotify. So enjoy our conversation and we'll see you next week. Hi, everybody. Welcome to ANN In Depth. We're so happy to have with us Dr. Landless, who is the Health Ministries Director of the Adventist Church World Headquarters here at the GC. Dr. Landless, thank you for being here with us.
It's a privilege to be with you.
And Dr. Torben Bergland, who is Associate Director for the Seventh-day Adventist World Church's Health Ministries Department. So thank you, Torben, for being here as well.
I'm also happy to be here.
We had both of you on our program and Sam is on vacation, which is why he's not here. Back right before Christmas, we were talking about how we can enter the holidays with the COVID pandemic still sort of raging on. And now we are about 6 months separate from that. And we are blessed here in the US. We are have vaccinations available. It seems like the world is starting to open up a little bit around us. So we thought we'd bring you both back to talk about what the implications of that are, because with that opening also comes some tricky business with COVID as well. We're both in the physical and in the mental health sphere. So I guess I want to jump into it. And I'm going to talk about us first, and then we can talk about everybody. Dr. Landless and Torben, we are getting, in the next few weeks and month or so, we're opening up our building again. The general conferences headquarters are coming back. We're coming back into the building. You both have been working with the various administrators and human resources departments to make that call for us. Can you talk about, and we'll ask Dr. Lanlis and then Torben if you have more to add, what processes you went through to make sure that we were safe as employees? Because I'm sure other people, as they're going back into their offices, will probably want to know what processes people are looking at when they're coming back to work.
Sure. Thank you, Jennifer. It's been an interesting journey. And basically, we follow not our own guidelines. We follow the guidelines of the county. Mm-hmm. So basically, we could only open the building when the county gave permission for that to happen. What do they do to make that permission available? They check on case numbers, check on numbers of immunized, vaccinated people in the county. And those decisions are made on a more legislative basis. Then the is granted to businesses to open at certain percentages. We've been open 25% for months now. Walking around the building, you would think it was about 2.5% most days. But there have been people who have been at their desks every day since that was granted. Mm. Now it's a much larger number. It was initially going to be 75%, and now it's going to be complete. Full opening and everyone to come in. It does face it poses some very significant challenges. And the first one is that not everybody is vaccinated. We have conducted a survey, and it's an anonymous survey, and that has been very helpful to us to understand the percentage of employees who have been vaccinated. And we're sitting at a good percentage, which looks to be over the 73, 75%, with a number of those who responded, which was at least 75% of the group at that time who had responded. And we're looking at a number of those who responded and some who have not yet responded, who have stated they will yet be vaccinated. And there are those who have said they are not planning to be vaccinated. That helps us look at whether or not there's going to be some form of community immunity here in the building. It poses significant challenges, however, because the CDC and other health organizations say, well, if you've been vaccinated, fully vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask unless you're in a crowded situation. When you're working with people who are fully vaccinated, you can also relent a little on all these protocols. However, this is a building which has many shared spaces, shared meeting rooms. And so we have decided on a more gradual unfolding of how we will work we're not even going to be, as the plans stand right now, starting with in-person worship in the auditorium from day one, because we're going to have to see how we're going to best manage that with seating, again, understanding that there will be some who are not vaccinated. And of course, the mask policy will be applied across the board. Why would we do that? We respect, and the church's position on immunization in general and on COVID-19 vaccine the same, is that it is an individual choice. It's not a mandate from the church. Of course, the church has no control over what government mandates, what airlines will mandate, what public places will mandate. But what we can do at the moment is that we, in order to make sure that people are not vilified, stigmatized, or so on, that in common shared areas, we will wear masks, and we will introduce on a measured, graded way the use of meeting rooms and worship in the auditorium. Of course, hand washing will be very importantly emphasized all the time. The hand sanitizer stations around the building will be in place. We will also monitor very carefully that if there are cases and breakouts of COVID within the building, we will have a very low threshold to, again, reverting to a lockdown situation, because we have to care for the safety of our people. The magic number, and we don't know how this is going to be fully practically implemented. When you have 80% of a community that is immune, either through exposure to COVID or another infectious disease, or through immunization, that is when one has this herd immunity, this level of increased safety. Whether that's going to fully play out in the percentages we have regarding the immune status within our own building will remain to be seen. But it makes sense that it should. We are not, sadly, our cafeteria has been closed. But we are not going to have food service in the building. There is work at present going on as to how we can best accommodate people who would still like to bring food into the building and eat at a place different to their desk. And we do have a big cafeteria area, and we can put up tables in fours and encourage people to use the facility throughout the day, in fact. It doesn't have to be two, and because there'll be no service nor servers, people can come and go as they choose. We'll each just have to clean up after ourselves, but it retains the social importance of being together when we eat, when we fellowship. I could carry on for a long time, but I think it's important that Torben, he's nodding very wisely, so he's picking up what I'm neglecting to say. Torben, share with us.
Oh, I'm nodding in agreement and listening to your wisdom to share. I think that it will be a very interesting time now as we resume from, many of us have been working primarily from home, getting back into the office. Like many probably look forward to it. Some maybe think, oh, I'd rather continue to stay at home. But I think it will be a time of adjustment and adaptation. So things are not just going back completely to normal day one in this building or other places as soon as things open up. In terms of work, family life, school life, all things, this will have the impact of the pandemic with us for quite a while still in various ways. And I think to give time for that also, that it will be to some extent an effort, hopefully many joys also in returning back to normal life. But some stresses, some effort, that will also be part of it.
Yeah, I think that now that everyone's coming back, because I've been here and now everyone's coming back, I'm gonna stop. I'm just gonna go home. I'm just kidding. But actually, Torben, I want to talk to you about this a little bit, because I have a friend of mine was telling me that her son was graduating from high school. Her son was graduating from high school, and so they had family at their house for the first time in a little bit. And she said that because she's only been with her husband and her son for the past couple of weeks, or for the past months, year or whatever, having family in the home, the in-laws are here, her father had visited. Now she needed more time by herself. She was less able to sort of, the stamina of being around people sort of has worn off. And I'm wondering what you think about this, not only for us all coming back, but now that the world is reopening a little bit. I've seen so many memes that says we're finally going to have to acknowledge that we don't want to actually go out to lunch with people. It's becoming harder for us. We were social people, but I think we're so used to now being isolated for the past year and a half, that being around people, and I can talk specifically about this office building, it's going to be a little bit hard to get used to. How to interact with people, how, for some of us where social interaction is already kind of exhausting, it's going to be that added measure of, learning to be not so selfish in how we do things. We've been able to do whatever we wanted sort of on our own time for the past year and a half, and now we have to compromise. We we have to be on someone else's schedule, and we have to learn how to talk to each other again, and in person, and touch, people want to shake your hand or touch you, and you automatically kind of step back from people. So I'm wondering, what are some of the things that we're going to be looking at as people, the anxiety that we're going to be facing, and how we can sort of push past that, because there's a bittersweetness to it. For me, I'm so excited to see people, but I'm also exhausted just thinking about it.
Well, there's been sort of a joke going in Norway, where I come from, that we look forward till the pandemic is over, so we can sort of be done with this 6 feet rule and go back to the 12 feet rule. So that we keep the distance from people. But I think this again, I think it will be very individual how people react and respond to this. Some it will be just a big party, getting back to people being with others. For others, it may be more of an adjustment. I think it's important to take time to it. But we are social creatures. Whether you're an introvert or extrovert, we all need people, and we just seen that from the research that has been done, that the distancing, the social disconnect that people have experienced, it has not been in general for the population a good thing. For some, it may have been okay, but in general, it's not good for us to be isolated, to be distanced from other people, to just see people on screens. And so I think even though if someone may have sort of be reluctant to get out of their PJs and have to dress up to go to work every day, it's still a good thing for us to do that.
What are PJs?
Dr. Lanlis, I don't want to interrupt Torben, but we've been joking that all of us are going to have to go on diets now to just get back into our work clothes, because we were told we had to be like, we had to go back to being in, business casual, and we've all been in our more, let's say, leisure wear for the past year and a half. So now we all have to go back to wearing our nice clothes. And that's not going to work out for us. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, sorry.
I'm worried about you both because I have only nice clothes. I mean, I'm happy to be seen any time of the day or night. You want to see me? What you see is what you get.
Dr. Landless is moderating children today, I guess.
But I really, I'm going to put in practice, Torben, the 24-foot rule you're talking about. Sorry, the 12-foot rule.
Yeah.
There's a lot of seriousness and deep implications of what Torben has just shared.
Yeah.
I think that coming back to the building is a very good thing. Working from home has been very, very pleasant, but it's taken away the demarcation between work, home, play, relaxation. And the other thing, it's liberating to have that routine. Now, Torben has spoken very eruditely and eloquently and accurately on the importance of not being isolated.
Yes.
We have been in a phase of isolation. And I've come into the office from time to time. I've not been here every day by any means, but I have come in, and I've right throughout the pandemic. But coming in now that there's the possibility of opening up brings a different mental frame to the whole picture. And as you say, bumping into people, meeting people, greeting people that although we've seen them on Zoom, we haven't interacted. Zoom is a blessing, no question about that. But it's a problem as well, because one misses the body language. It's fine when you have three people in a conversation like this. You can catch nuance, you can pick up the body language a little better. But when you're sitting with 20, 40, 60, 100 people on a screen, it's really not communication at its best.
Yeah.
The other thing, the community is so important. There are a number of people in our building and who live on their own, who live by themselves. This has been an extremely difficult time for them. And I think this reintegration into a schedule, into a routine, back to whatever normal is going to be. And I was thinking about your comment. What is life going to be like after COVID? None of us know, because COVID's not gone.
Yeah.
We're right in the midst of it. We're at a stage where you're saying, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Yes and no, because we don't know what is next. So I think this coming back is a very good thing. I think it's a positive thing. It needs to be well managed. And it also entails that our mindset is adjusted to getting back together. And I believe it's going to be liberating for many of us. For me, it most certainly is.
Yeah, I have to say you both helped me a lot at the beginning of the pandemic, because we've been talking, sort of had these conversations before. And one of the things I think, Torben, that you said, that one of the things at the beginning was to keep to a schedule, don't just let yourself sort of go crazy and wake up late. And so one of the things I've tried to do throughout the pandemic is to wake up and get ready, whatever that looks like, for sitting in front of my computer at home all day, it's actually hard to do when you're at home, because the idea of just kind of getting up and going straight to your computer is tempting to sleep that little extra time, And so when the building sort of opened up and I was allowed to come back, I did start to come back. And I have been really intentional about being social with people that I'm allowed to be social with, that are in sort of that bubble that we create, because I tend to not be, Dr. Lanlis, I think you and I have talked about this, that I could be at home for 2 weeks or 3 weeks at a time and not talk to anyone. And I would actually be okay. I just having a Zoom conversation here or there and not actually interacting with people. And so because I know that about myself, I've been very intentional about coming into the office. The office is good for me. I know that. Going to my sister's house, who was, in my bubble, it has been good to me. But I am nervous, if I'm being honest, about coming back with 100% capacity and what that's going to do, because that's a lot more people than any of us are used to being around. And so I do see excitement, though. There are people who are really excited, and I see family members being able to be near their friends again. And, I just got back from a trip, and it's nice to be able to have a little bit more freedom, even if I'm nervous. There is excitement with that too. I don't know how it's all going to go. And I do find myself tired more quickly of social interaction. I don't have the stamina. And so I guess I'm wondering what should we be looking for as we're moving forward with our own mental health, just to take care of our, in the same advice that you gave us to stay away, get up, get your schedule together, make sure you're Zooming with people, make sure you're talking to people, don't isolate yourself. What sort of same markers should we be paying attention to as we're coming back? Is there something that we should be doing? Like you said, go slowly, or pay attention to how you're feeling. I mean, even, around people, is there something that we should be doing in those kind of cases to make sure that we're not sort of overloading ourselves and going burnout in the opposite direction? Now we're seeing everyone all the time, and we're going out every night, and we're, overcrowding ourselves with all the freedom we have. But,
well, I don't think there's a big risk in starting to have more interaction with people. I don't think.
Only I would be like, too much.
Well, I think that may be more sort of like some kind of sort of anticipation or worry or fear or something that I wouldn't worry in general for our staff and people about that. But I think what can be an important thing is to be intentional about how we interact also as we get together. I think colleagues who have been apart, people you work together with, like to do something intentional to like really reconnect and create positive experiences again with one another. It is sort of a transition that we're going through as we get back. Also, we being apart, many populace like suffered from that also, maybe even more, and had some kind of grief reaction to being isolated and being away from people. So in a way, can we find ways to celebrate, in a way, getting back together? I don't know if that's what you're looking for, Jennifer.
No, I mean, but it's not just here at work, but I mean, even with our friends and family, we have, I don't want to say unlimited freedom now. I don't want to say that, because we don't. I mean, maybe in some places of the world we do, but I don't think by any means we here in Maryland do we have unlimited freedom to do whatever we want. But now we can go. Baseball's opened up, restaurants are opened up. Our families are now free to be around each other. And I maybe this is sort of an introverted, coming from an introverted place. And if Sam were here, he'd be like, you're crazy. But to overload ourselves with activity now that we've been so isolated for so long. Are we in danger of stretching ourselves thin, fitting all, almost trying to make up for time, the time we lost?
But I think in that, like making it a priority, the reconnecting a priority, like there's many other things that we've been focused on during this pandemic and kept us busy with. Maybe one of the important things now when we have the opportunity is actually in our lives to prioritize reconnecting, visiting friends and family when we can. Some of us, we've been away for a long time. I'm planning when everything's open up, I can go and visit my family. I'm actually going to spend quite some time with them, more than I normally would have done, just because I've been away for such a long time. I hope my boss will give me permission. I haven't pleaded for that yet. But still, I think that and in our context also, like with colleagues also, like to take some extra minutes to sit down and talk with one another, sort of what's happened, how are you, that kind of things, so we like really can get back into to being in relationship, because that's what we are. Like when we are colleagues, we are in relationships with one another. So it's not just sort of a work collaboration, but it's real people with real needs, and we have that also. So I think that is important, to be intentional about the relationships as we enter into the weeks and months ahead.
Yeah,
I think that's absolutely true. And I think there's another very important issue, Jennifer. You've talked about freedom. We have freedom. I think we need to realize that freedom comes with responsibility. And when one is free and you have freedom, you need to exercise accountable responsibility as we do that. And so that will guide, hopefully, my decisions, my plans as to how I integrate back into the setup. I took a plane flight a few weeks ago, first time in 16 months. I was fully vaccinated, scared spitless as I got into the airport. I'd forgotten what an airport was for, and I thought it was where they park these antique relics that we'll never use again. And that whole process was a liberating thing, to sit and look in the aircraft, look out of the window and say, wow, there is life beyond Silver Spring. There is still a beautiful world out there. And we also have been inundated with so much news, so much reporting, so many conspiracy theories, so many tragic issues, and it's affected our mindset to a great extent, and all of that needs to be recalibrated.
Yes. I know so many people over the past year and a half who have actually just stopped watching the news. It became too much for them, that if you say, hey, did you hear this happened? They'll say, no, I can't watch the news anymore. I can't hear about one more sort of bad thing, one more conspiracy theory, one more whatever it is. And they've just sort of had to step away from the news. That was the first thing that went for them, because there has been so much negativity, and we have more access to news now than we ever have before. I do want to talk a little bit, I said we were going to talk about kids a little bit, because I think that there's so many questions and about children. And first I want to ask just sort of about this idea that we should, right now, if you're not vaccinated, in many places they say that you don't have to wear masks. My parents went to Costco the other day and they said there was a sign that said, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear masks. But a lot of parents are still having their children wear masks because they can't be vaccinated. And then on the other hand, that there are some camps now or schools who are open and they say that kids have to wear masks, and the parents are upset. Well, COVID doesn't impact kids, so why should my kid have to wear a mask? And I'm wondering, Dr. Landless and Torben, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about kids as well. What is your recommendation? I mean, obviously you are not the, we talked about this. You said you're not the end all be all of but what would you say to a parent right now who's saying, should my kid wear a mask? Should they not wear a mask? What is safe for my kid to do? I'm very confused. I'm hearing a lot of conflicting information.
I think that there has been a lot of disinformation, and the fact that COVID-19 has its greatest impact on the extremes of life, the very young, the old, that has left a lot of people thinking, well, if you're in between, it's like having a cold. Well, it's not true. There have been deaths in babies, in infants. I just got a message this morning, a phone call from Southern Africa, telling me about a 92-year-old colleague, physician, who's still practicing in mission setting, who had COVID, was very sick, is back at work, feeling fine.
Wow.
So you get the exceptions to the rule. And people were saying, well, we don't need to worry about the kids, but it turned out that children can be super spreaders. Children go home to grandparents. Children go and are in contact with people who may have immune compromised states.
Mm.
So the fact that they don't exhibit the disease does not mean they cannot be carriers. Also, part of this whole push to investigate the use of vaccines in children, in younger people, has been because it's been shown that it's not true to say that children are unaffected. There's a condition called multi-system inflammatory syndrome. This is allied to a condition that's been known for many years called Takayasu's disease. And, this is where where children have significant affectation of their arteries, multi-system arterial disorders and disease. And you don't see this with a common cold, you don't see this with influenza, but you do see it in certain other viral infections, and COVID-19 is one of those. And it has caused very significant issues. So children are not immune, as it were, to the effects of COVID-19. They're also in a setting where they are more likely to be asymptomatic as carriers and therefore more likely to spread. So it is important, and it's hard. It's really hard. Children have lost 18 months of their lives, of community, of playing together, of being with each other. And this is a huge challenge. And the isolation that we feel, that you've described so clearly, they feel it just as much.
Yes.
They're going to be as scared to integrate with their friends. They're going to be as nervous about it. And I think that what it's going to take a measured, careful approach by parents, by teachers, by society to help bridge this time period until we get to the stage where we can all cast masks away, where we can say, you know what, we're going to possibly, and I'm not predicting this, but we may need to have boosters from time to time, tweaked vaccines as for flu, but we'll move into a more normal kind of existence. The children are vulnerable, not only physically, but emotionally. And so we need to manage that carefully and not create in their minds the conflict that they are being singled out and punished, but that we can do this together.
Yeah, and they have the anger too. I've seen so many kids, I don't have kids, but I have a niece and nephew I'm really close to, and they have the anger about COVID almost more so than I do, that when they talk about it, there is like a frustration and anger that exists in them and their friends that is surprising almost to see. And, my niece and nephew are 6 and 8. So for them to have that at that age is really sometimes surprising and also sad to see. They're supposed to be young, they're supposed to be carefree, they're supposed to be kids and playing with their friends, and to have that anger. And I guess it's very sad to see in children that you care about, well, in any child really, but specifically for me, that the two I'm around. Torben, you look like you were about to say something. Sorry.
Yeah, no, but I think I'm very curious and interested in sort of what will the long-term impact also be on kids. Like this age they're in, then they are learning how to interact with the world, and they've sort of in many ways been cut off from the world for many months. Many kids are going to do perfectly well with that. But again, I think it's very important that parents, teachers, whoever interact with kids, that they are conscious, that they are aware of what's like and curious, inquiring, like what's going on, what are they thinking, what are they feeling, and talking with them about that. Oftentimes we sort of think kids are small people, they don't think much, it's small thoughts, but kids are often very reflective, like even more so on the big questions, existential questions of life, than we as adults are. So never underestimate what goes on in the mind of a child. And I think especially also whenever, if you see some kind of reactions, behavior that indicates that the child is stressed, that is frustrated, then you can be sure that that's the tip of the iceberg. And then to have a dialogue with the kids on that. And also think in this process also it's important to talk with the kids on what do they feel safe, how do they make it feel safe in sort of re-entering into the world, not just push them, not just tear off their masks or send them out to the kids, but like process it together with them. I think that is important as we move forward.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. My niece is very rule oriented, and she's 8. She's almost 9. She's 45 in her heart, I guess. But she's been very sort of like, this person isn't wearing their mask and they need to be wearing their mask. Like, you can tell, like, in order for her to feel safe, that she needs to see that the people around her are also being safe, that they're wearing their masks. I don't think she would feel comfortable in a situation right now where nobody was wearing their mask.
Yeah.
And, my sister's a teacher. She teaches 1st and 2nd grade at an Adventist school. And she said, if we have to choose between social distancing and wearing masks, if this is what we're choosing between in order to keep our children safe, can we keep masks? Because kids need to be together. Seeing children have to stay 6 feet apart in plexiglass desks just so they can be taught in person has been a little bit heartbreaking, even for teachers. And to see kids who are so used to like running together and playing together and, tag and to play on the playground and this and that, and not being able to do that, to sit together and read books, or to talk, or it's been very hard for adults to see, but for kids, I can't even imagine. I would have never imagined this for, what I would have had to do as a child, but for them, I can see even in that younger age, that going back and is so terrifying. And for those who are turning 12, the excitement of getting vaccines. I have a friend who told me the only thing her son wanted for his birthday is to get vaccinated at 12. He just wants to be, he wants to be safe. He wants to be with his friends. And so I can't imagine, can you imagine like being 12 years old and all you want to do is have something that allows you to be around the people you love safely? I mean, that's something I can't even comprehend,
If I may say, like, I think kids, teenagers, young adults, they have been forced to deal and face death in a way that often they don't. And also we've seen that through research, that one of the big stressors have not been that people are worried for themselves, but they're worried for others. And kids, you're thinking, like, imagine like being worried for their parents. What if my parent gets sick, gets COVID, and what if they die? My grandparents, who are maybe like in a vulnerable age, what about them? So also, and this just sometimes we underestimate like also that, but like we know from research, like kids in general think a lot about death. Actually, and a word, because they're so vulnerable. Like a child knows very well they cannot survive on their own. They're totally dependent on others. And now with this pandemic that we've had, they had to sort of deal with it so much. So again, it takes time to sort of bring down the stress level. Also in kids that we've been through, for them to start reorienting into just what the world in a way should be like for kids and adolescents. So I think it is very important with this almost, I sometimes use the term the COVID generation. For us who are adults, who have been adults for many years, for decades, we know what normal is. It's easier. We can know what we're returning to. For many of the kids, this has become the normal. And they have to learn simply how to deal with a world where they don't need to worry about COVID, losing important family members.
I think too, for parents and teachers, well, for parents especially, the guilt that they feel, you know, working and trying to educate their children and making this not so be such a scary time and making sure their kids are okay. You know, I think that we hear a lot that kids are resilient, and they are, has been sort of a relief to parents right now who are struggling. But we still need to, you know, keep an eye out on our kids and our parents, and even teachers who have seen a lot of sadness and, you know, struggling with kids, especially. It's somehow more painful when it's kids that you see struggling and experiencing that sadness, and they've lost, like you said, a lot. Some family members and grandparents and parents and aunts and uncles, you know, people they love very much, that they've experienced sometimes multiple losses within the past year.
And I don't think we should be surprised to see anger in children. You know, I think that we should grant them what we grant ourselves. And that is, we're all subject to this issue of original sin. And I mean, if you don't believe that, look at the squirrels and the birds fighting over birdseed. I mean, it's squirrels are squirrels, birds. I mean, it's this survival kind of mode. And if I want to take care of myself, that's who it is. And if you don't do it my way, then, and children, as has been very beautifully stated, face that fear of loss and how to handle it. And it's because we as adults don't handle it well. We don't model it well. We don't provide that. And when I say we don't, we try to. Of course we try to. But it's very difficult to do this when adults themselves are under such pressure and stress, financial, job-wise, emotional, having to care for. I was talking to someone this morning, in fact, about how do single parents cope with children who need to be schooled from home, who need to have internet, who need to have devices, who need to have all these things, and yet they've got to earn a living at the same time. I don't know that we can imagine ourselves into these circumstances readily. And this is where we as a church have such an important role to play. And I worry that our disconnectedness has led to us being connected to other things. People may not be watching news. What are they watching? How much time are we spending on devices, looking at things other than news? How much time do we take in making a phone call to someone who's on their own, making that contact? And especially with children. Children respond to being cared for. Yes. They love to be named by their name. And what you're doing for your niece and nephew are just amazing, because they know their parents care for them. But what a wonderful thing to have an aunt who comes in and sows all kinds of devastation in their lives. Because you have them and spoil them and give them what their parents say they can't have. But there's a relationship.
Yeah. Oh, I'm very good at giving them I don't break any rules. The parents' rules are, I want to make that official. At least, you know, my fingers may be crossed, but
we believe officially.
Officially,
not.
Officially, we keep the rules.
But as we look at the devastation in India and in our own country and around the world, how that's affected people, where people die, get cremated, disposed of. They don't even know the names of some of these individuals. People said, I never thought that this would be how I'd say goodbye to my mother, my child. So as a church, we have a responsibility to be the hands, the heart, the communication of the love and the grace of Jesus. And it takes effort to do that. It takes effort. And sometimes we feel as though we're extended beyond any way that we can do things. But we need to do the next step, and that is to reach out.
Yeah.
So I would just leave that message in my own heart as something which sermonizing is one thing, but weeping with those who weep, rejoicing with those who rejoice, with prayer and communication, great things can happen.
I have friends who said, normally in the situation, I would ask to take, a kid, my friend's kid, she's a single mother, or there's a single father, or I would want to take the kid for a couple of days and just give them some time. But in COVID, that was hard to do. But we can, like you said, call them or send a meal over, or, there are things that we can do. And as within our local churches and our local community, be the hands and feet of Jesus and really reach out. That's such great advice right now, because there are people where I feel very blessed to have my family close by. There are people who don't, and there are people who are, like you said, alone, and they have their kids, or what can we do to make sure that they're feeling safe and that they're okay right now? It's very good advice. I know we need to sort of wrap up, but I want to leave with some good news or some hope, and I want to leave with some practicality with us as we're coming into the summer months here in the U.S. I know that in other parts of the world they're entering into their winter, but as we're vaccinations are becoming more widely available, and people are we do see a downward slope to COVID cases among those who are vaccinated. How should we behave? I mean, Dr. Landless, I know you don't want to give advice to everyone, and everyone needs to follow their own heart or with their doctor's advice. But how should we wear masks? Should we, how should we be going to beaches? Should we be going around and traveling? What should we be doing, and how should we be facing the new world that we're living in?
You do have the ability to ask difficult questions, Jennifer.
With a smile on my face.
You're correct. And it's not that I don't want to give advice. Those who know me well know that I have much unsolicited advice to give away. And I have to put a curb to this mouth and realize that I'm not the world's policeman nor the world's advisor. Having said that, we need to be aware of what's happening around us. I see that over the Memorial Day weekend in the United States, there was more travel over that weekend than since the beginning of the pandemic. And I think watching, and I make a prediction, and not being a prophet, that when we come to July 4, it's going to be even more. Mm-hmm. So what are other people doing? We need to look at, what am I willing to be exposed to? Am I in a state that I should be? Am I going to do this responsibly? Should we take vacations? Of course we need to take a vacation. I've been waiting for 16, 17 months to take a vacation. And we've now bitten the bullet. We're going to a little place which is near a lake, and we're going to spend some days there, and it's going to be pretty isolated. Even the birds wear masks there, I believe. I'm joking. But having said that, and the fish, and I don't know, won't be looking for the fish too well. But having said that, we need to start living again. Just going out to the stores, going and purchasing flowers, which we did just this last weekend. We put our masks on. And interestingly, people all around that store were wearing masks. It was the exception that was not. Now, that's this part of the world. I know you're going to other parts of the world, as you were just recently, and you stand out like a sore thumb. That's okay. You need to choose how you're going to behave, how it's going to best influence your health. But of course, why do we wear masks? Is to help others too. As fully vaccinated, when I go into a store, I could say to the store owner, I'm fully vaccinated. Don't come near me. Don't infringe on my rights. You've already made me have the vaccine. You're going to make me wear a mask? That's not what it's about. We do this for the protection of others as well. same reason as we do vaccines. And again, at our own choice, in consultation with our physicians, we encourage that to take place. Then when it comes to going to the beach, I wouldn't have pleasure going to the beach in a mask, frankly, but that's my choice.
Mm.
So people need to do what they are comfortable doing, what they feel is safe to be done. And then, of course, when you go and eat in places, in restaurants have opened up. I think we still need to be wise and careful, because you don't know who's been vaccinated. You don't know who may be carriers. So large crowds, I don't think that it's a carte blanche, an open invitation. Everybody's going to be safe if you go to a huge baseball game or whatever it may be.
Mm.
So I think we need to be carefully thought through as to where we choose to go, how we do things, but we do need to live.
Yeah.
And wearing masks in appropriate places. And of course, that decision's made for us on places like public transport. The decision is made. The decision is made. You get onto an airplane and let you on without a mask. So take the guidance as is given by the local jurisdictions and authorities. And when you come into places where you may disagree and you may think that that jurisdiction is a little bit lax, make a decision.
Mm.
But I do think it's appropriate and wise to start moving out of this total isolation and getting back into communicating and having people over for a meal and those kind of things. And you can meet and entertain outside as well. But we're getting to the point where small gatherings are really going to be a lot of fun to do all over again. So we need to move wisely, carefully. I mean, some of the things, and people coming back to the building will be glad to hear that we've taken the one-way stair signs. Those will be gone. You can go up and down as you choose. Those are going to be fine. The temperature machines will still be in place. Some say, oh, that's crazy. That does nothing. It does give a certain kind of assurance to all of us that we're not missing people who are
Right.
the high temperature. So abiding by all those little things and trying to get back into some semblance of normality is going to be healthy for us to do, but it's got to be measured.
Yeah. And we should assure the people coming in that those temperature machines take less than 5 seconds. So it's a small price to pay for a great measure of safety, and we should be operating. I think that people should, love your neighbor as yourself. And that's why we do these things.
Much less time and much less stress than arguing with the messenger who says to you, please take your temperature.
I know.
Just do it and get by.
Right. Torben, do you have any sort of last words for us as we're wrapping up? And then after you're done, if you could pray for us.
Sure. Well, I think it's important that we still have some patience. It's not a well-defined timeline ahead of us. And we know that in some parts of the world, they are in the midst of it. And it's really bad situation. So around the world, people are at very different stages of this pandemic, apparently. And we also see that sometimes things open up and then you see increased numbers and then they have to tighten down on restrictions again. And I think we just have to still be patient and be flexible in how we deal with it, as Dr. Landis said, or Peter, that even in this building, if we see something happening, like an increase, we may have to sort of backtrack a little bit until we move forward. But the thing is, it doesn't look like this pandemic is going to last forever. It looks like we are going to get through it. It's a question of time. So just having that patience still, even though we want predictability, we want to know sort of what to plan for. That's something that is, I think, inherent in us, a need we have.
Yeah.
But still, we will probably have to still be patient for a while, and be patient with authorities who try to be responsible, have every intention to manage this in the best possible way. So also listen to them, what they say. I think that is very important. If they tell you don't have to wear a mask, well, you're still free to wear a mask the rest of your life if that's what you want. But it's probably not necessary. Not a good idea to do that. And I think that will be a challenge for some. Like some will throw it away immediately. Others will be reluctant. Like, is it really safe? Now we've gotten so used to it. I remember in the past we would see tourists from Asia. They were always wearing masks, and we'll like wonder what are they thinking? It's sort of they're overly careful. Now many of us find ourselves in the same situation, and it's difficult sometimes to actually, like, I felt that myself. Like, even if I can leave the mask behind, sort of it's that is also a threshold to step over. Not putting alcohol on whenever we see a dispenser, not going there and getting a dose of alcohol on our hands. That's still something that we have to readapt to a world where we don't fear the coronavirus all the time. But we'll hopefully get there soon.
Yeah, it's gonna be a transition for all of us, and we should be patient with each other and with ourselves, a little self-forgiving, I think. But I think we'll hopefully get there soon, if we can maintain some common sense and patience. Yeah, I think you're right. Thank you both so much. Torben, if you could pray for us, and then we will wrap up.
Yes, I will. Dear Lord, we thank you that you have been with us through this pandemic. That doesn't mean that we haven't faced challenges, we haven't faced losses. People have died. Many of us, people we know, people we love, have been sick, have lost their lives, and we suffer the consequences of that. But Lord, we know that you suffer with us, and that you care for us. You love us. You know all that we think. We know everything that we feel. And we pray that we will still hold on to you as we continue to go through this and cope with what has been and cope with what's to come. Lord, I pray again, as this has been a major crisis for the world and for most of us in some way or another, it's been a crisis. Lord, we pray that you will help us. We know that you always work for the good of those who love you. You work for the good of everyone. And we pray that as we look back, that we may see that we have learned something, we have grown in ways, and that we can, in some ways, be in a better place as we re-enter a more normal life, but still a normal that is not according to the normal that you intended for us and for our world. We live in a world that is far from what you created. But Lord, we have to be here. We have no other option now, but we thank you that you go with us. Thank you that we can also go together. And I pray, Lord, especially that this looking out for one another, which we have talked about so much during this pandemic, we need to care for one another, how we are doing. Pray that that may be one of the important lessons that we have learned, that we can continue to practice as we move forward. So Lord, pray for each one who has watched, and pray that what we have shared, the reflections we have thought, may be a blessing and may be a help to people, and pray for your guidance and leading in everyone's life. Pray in your name. Amen.
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 Thank you both for being here. I am looking forward to, at the end of this recording, being able to step out into the hallway and see you both in person, because Dr. Lanlis, you and I share a wall even. So I am looking to seeing you in a few minutes. And if you're watching this, we ask that you comment below if you have a prayer request. We have people waiting to pray for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if you're watching this and you are afraid of something, maybe ask that the Lord help you kind of get past that fear, or join the community of people who are talking about it. So we will see you next week. God bless.